Anyone want to sing?
I don't know, man.
Sweet home Alabama. Your sky's also blue. Sweet home Alabama. Lord, I'm coming home to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Sweet home Alabama.
Exactly. Leonard Skinner coming live from
Yes.
La Jolla, California.
I'm sure that sounded really horrible.
It sounded just like we all remembered it, you know.
Horrible? I don't remember it being.
No, it was great. It was great.
One of the best tunes, quite honestly. I mean,
really is.
You really have to, and one of the best recorded songs in history, in my opinion.
I think so. And as I've said,
Souls, baby.
I think we should consider replacing the national anthem with "Sweet Home Alabama."
Man.
I think there's nothing more American than that song. I really do. I think it's just totally awesome.
Yeah, I think Neil Young will beg to differ.
But you know what? Southern man doesn't want him around anyhow. You know, so that's what we think about Neil Young. He can go back to Canada, right?
Yeah.
That old man. We're not taking a look at his life, and we're not a lot like him. So anyway, what are we not talking about today? Are we not talking about something?
Yeah, we're not going to be talking about IoT.
Yeah.
We're going to really question the idea of IoT. I mean, does it even exist? Does it even matter? And if it matters, why?
Why?
It's such a mystery, right?
It is.
What the think about it. It's changed so much since it was initially introduced, right? And of course, we were in a different time and a different place when the term Internet of Things was coined. But I mean, what does it mean? Does it mean anything anymore?
And also, just because some person coins a term or a phrase doesn't mean an entire industry has to jump on board some giant bandwagon to oblivion to try to make a market out of that or think it's a market, you know?
Yeah.
And also there's so many people, I would say, new to the game. I also call them history rewriters. These are the same people that said the smartphone revolution didn't start until after the iPhone came out. And then there were no smartphones before that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Like when you say, oh, I got into the smartphone game in 2009 or 10, they go, oh, you were really early. And I'm sitting there like, no, you were late, 2008. We were doing smartphones, 8 years earlier than that. And so with IoT, I see the same thing, and people think I'm weird when I'm like, why are we still talking about that? You look like an idiot. It's not a market. It's not a product. We're just making things talk to us. And guess what? We made things talk to us in the 90s too. It just wasn't as pervasive. You know, lots of people we weren't able to have machines talk to us until 2011. I'm like, wrong, pal.
Yeah. Okay. Show over. We're done now, right?
And we're done.
Basically,
we're done.
Laid out the truth. You did the Buddha thing.
Some people were just saying, "Hey, it's I thought I really was a big fan of the articles that Jim Heppelman co-wrote for Harvard Business Review a few years way back, which was a great kind of introduction. It was like, there's products, then there's smart products, and then there's smart connected products, and system of systems with those smart connected products or whatever they happen to be.
I remember. Yeah,
and that was a great way to think about it. But people have bought into the idea that IoT is somehow a market or a product, and it's just not. It's just a term that some guy coined. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, oftentimes I think, well, what is the internet? I mean, is there a internet industry? Is there a internet market? I mean, we don't talk about quote unquote the internet in terms of a market anymore. In fact, back in the dot-com era, there were internet companies, but they really struggled trying to define the market, right? Because you had a whole wide range of different types of companies that had different types of fundamentals, different business models, catering to different end markets. And they were trying to corral all these companies into this thing called the internet. Yeah. Right? And then so now we have this Internet of Things, and it seems like we're having the same dilemma and issue. Yes. And what it fosters is basically a bunch of senseless conversation and debate, right? About well, this isn't internet, this isn't IoT, or what is IoT, or you need to have an IoT solution, or we're an IoT company. It's like, okay, so what's how many internet companies are there?
Yeah, but you're right. People suffered from the same problems when the internet went public for commercial usage after it came out of ARPANET. And you're right. Back then, people said, we're an internet company. What were they really? All these things are just enablers and capabilities to do other things, right? Because we just used the internet, the biggest network in the world that's interconnected and resilient. But boy, what did those people, they took advantage of the internet in the 90s when we all went through the dot-com craze. But you know what? They wouldn't have gone anywhere. What they really took advantage of was the creation of the World Wide Web. And then beyond that, dynamic websites where you could actually type something in and submit it. And all of a sudden, e-commerce can happen. Oh, I can sell things.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so it was just another way to have a store, right? Or a market for selling things or for whatever.
It's an online channel. It's a channel. That's all.
It's a channel, and it's a great channel.
Yeah.
It's a great channel.
It's awesome, but people have to realize for certain very popular applications, if you will, like e-commerce, it's still a fraction of traditional, right? E-commerce, even during the pandemic, is still it's not more than 20%. Before, it used to be only around 10%, and traditional retail was growing in absolute terms faster than e-commerce. So these are things that people don't really, quite honestly, they don't know. Because they've never asked the question, well, how big is e-commerce really? And so, these are the types of things that I think the IoT is going to suffer as well, because, think about it. You have companies like ABB, Siemens, Dassault Systems, you have PTC, you have Hitachi, all these companies that have been doing all the connected stuff industrial for a long time. They're jumping on the bandwagon. They've probably in the past had debates of whether or not they adapt the term M to M, or stick with the term M to M, or do they jump on the IoT bandwagon? But I'm sure there was a lot of, and continues to be a lot of eye rolling. But they're kind of letting their marketing teams roll with the punch. It's like, well, let's go with the flow, because if we put IoT, if we say we do IoT, then the SEOs on the Google search, our stuff will float to the top on Google search, that kind of stuff. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like we've talked about, the folks who kind of broadly said, we're going to go after this IoT market horizontally, deliver some value, they've had mixed success, right? Or no success. The ones who say it's a tool, it's a capability for me to deliver this specific thing, this specific offering, those people are doing okay. If it adds value to you,
Yeah.
We're here to just remotely monitor wastewater, or whatever, and it's like, that's what the business is. That's the business. We happen to be using this network. We happen to be using some sensors like we've always used. But through the magical wireless, we can remotely know what the sensors are telling us, and then we can act on it more quickly. That's it. That's it.
But you know what? That sells. That sells. And this whole idea of IoT, who are you trying to sell to? You know, other than probably a bunch of what you're doing is you're hoping that there's some maker slash developer geeks on the other end that you're pitching to that actually has budget.
Yeah,
which oftentimes isn't the case, right?
Yeah,
you're at the end of the day selling a product or a service that is technical in nature, not necessarily something that you can really intrinsically drive a business outcome out of, right? It's that solution design that's important, like what you're saying, and you have to translate all the technical junk into something that makes sense to the business stakeholder. I mean, it's all about chasing budget, and that's why we have all these POCs that go nowhere.
But I think both of you guys are describing, shops that are doing very specific work, are delivering value and outcomes, and happen to mention, we leverage the IoT to deliver value and do this and do that. And then on the other side, it's just the shops that are full of shit that are just using this for marketing to see if they can get in front of someone that throws money at them, and then they'll figure out what it is that they're going to do to bring value. I mean, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, it looks like a beautiful sunny day in Portlandia.
Yeah. Oh
yes, and I had less than desirable LTE coverage about a quarter mile from here, so I came up to the cemetery. Very quiet, guys. Very quiet.
Really? Wow. So, what network are you on?
Why would you ask
T-Mobile?
me that?
AT&T?
No. The
US Cellular?
The only one I use, the good one.
He's on China Mobile, dude. I know this guy.
China Mobile at the
China
cemetery.
Mobile.
I'm roaming on an eSIM.
KDDI, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Cemetery. I think this is a first. First time a IoT Coffee Talker has been calling in from a cemetery.
we've been doing the remote thing since remote work was a thing. So
well, the reason there's such great coverage there is, Verizon was responding to the demands of all the dead people who said, dang it, build a cell tower near us. We need coverage. We can't, our seances are not connecting with our loved ones who are in the real world. We need coverage. And Verizon's like, well, gosh, you need to pay up then. And so I think through some kind of trust fund or whatever, from all those dead people in the cemetery, Verizon got enough money to make it worth their while to build a tower, some baseband action, some backhaul. Some of that backhaul kind of had to wiggle in between the tombstones and grave sites. It got kind of weird.
You're onto something. And I think the operator of the cemetery, in trying to figure out their own IoT business model, just delivered, cemetery connectivity as a service.
Yeah.
They have to dig up the place to, operate under normal conditions, lay down the fiber, lay down the sensors. It was a beautiful union. But jokes aside, seriously, it made all the difference. I think I came up maybe 80 feet in, from a valley to the top. And then it just, boom, all of a sudden it works. So,
oh, cool. Right on.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's all that ultra wideband stuff. You can't have that in a cemetery because there's no ground penetration. You'll have to dig up all the corpses for them to get any reception, man. See?
We'll just knock down the trees and the pine needles, and
that'll take care of the problem.
We're all on a learning curve. We're all on a learning curve with millimeter wave. So
yes,
you guys.
I was reminded about millimeter wave when I went through the airport the other day, and you kind of read the little sign when you're about to walk through the TSA thing and stand there like this. And but for the first time, there's like an instruction deal, and it's actually, normally I don't care. It's like, this is millimeter wave technology. It does da 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 da. And this is how, and you're like, excellent. And we can make phone calls over this as well. I wonder if those things are going to end up being kind of like the transport systems of the future, like where you're going to beam up, because they look kind of like it could be similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't have a factual link to share on this, but I think the stuff that we got in Seattle and Portland, as far as the millimeter wave, foreign object detection mechanism, that's the same one that Skipple tried for many years, and that they eventually deployed. It looks, I'll find out. I think it's the same brand, but I was really happy to see it, because then they followed up with the millimeter wave version of the for the bags. Yeah. To be able, and it's kind of like, it's like almost like getting upgraded to TSA Pre, where no one has to open the stuff because the machine will do it. So, I don't know. I hope we get, that tech, because, people are flocking to airports again. So we've heard.
I had that experience in one line. It was the old school, take out your laptop and everything. But there was another line that I got in, and they said, if you put everything in this bin, and they go, don't take out your laptop, don't do everything. And it was able to scan the stuff inside your backpack and in your bags. And I was like, yes, this is great. Yeah. That's good stuff.
And it's a good example. We always talk about, return on investment, and that's a soft ROI, because you eliminate lines. What you're eliminating is grief and people pissed off, but that doesn't have monetary value. Like we don't have a budget for pissed off people mitigation, but that's what, obviously it's grounded in security. I think the security guys paid for the thing, right? And then the experience is like, and people are not pissed off, and we're catching the drugs and the knives and the still active grenades through the TSA line.
Excellent.
Are you sure?
Go get them.
Yes, man. There's a good. I think there's a TSA subreddit, and it's amazing.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what do we? So I was on an Industry 4.0 Clubhouse yesterday, and we talked about. I don't think I said IoT once. I think I was just saying, listen, it's just like APIs, right? It's just APIs from machines, and it's just plumbing to get the data, however you get it.
Yeah.
But ultimately it was to take it somewhere to analyze it and then create automation. It's always interesting when you have these discussions around manufacturing and the word automation, and I talked about bots, not robots, but software agents. And there's always that fear of losing jobs to automation. And I was just like, the history of manufacturing is automation.
Yeah.
I go, where do you think it all begins? You have some idea. What is manufacturing? You're just making a product from raw materials, assembling other products. And when you're a little baby startup and you've got your idea, you and a bunch of your friends are on some card tables assembling something. Yeah. First, you do it by yourself, then you get a bunch of friends together, and then you get machines to help you do it. And then pretty soon you have a factory and a production line, and you're doing it. Yeah. What was that whole thing? The whole thing was automation. And you chose to do that automation because it takes you too long to build the widget, the car, by yourself, by hand, when machines can help you. And so when people freak out about using IoT-ish stuff and digital twins and automated analytics and stuff like that, it's like, dude, that's just par for the course. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
But Rob, what do you say? And we still see this today. You have a platform, a sensor, a service, a solution. And because you made it work for one thing, it's like, we were able to gather data from the cemetery. I got the soil moisture from Mr. Kelly's tomb here. It should work the same for manufacturing. Let me go and take the same thing and say, hey, I can give you vibration data of this thing because I was able to do it in a cemetery. And a lot of them fail. And I think it took a while for companies to that had an OT automation background to actually take all of these IoT principles in an industry 4.0 models to actually deliver solutions. Funny enough, those in my experience, those who are full of it in that space are the ones to get called out quicker.
Yeah.
Customers find out really, really, really quickly if you've ever been in a plant, in a factory, and whether you know the difference between batch and process.
Yeah, the thing is the more I think about it, the idea of IoT is really addressing one thing, and it's really having a pipe and having a better pipe. Like what you're saying, it's the plumbing, right? Like what you're saying, Rob. And when we start to overload it, I brought this up several times. We start to overload it with like AI and analytics and digital twin and all this other stuff. Then I think that's where things become less and less clear, because as you start to overload the definition of IoT, then people really just don't know what you're talking about, and they typically don't challenge you, because if if you ask somebody, well, what do you mean by IoT, then you feel like a dummy, right? You feel everyone knows what the IoT is, right? And so then you run into communication issues and being able to express what it is exactly that you're trying to bring to the table in solving a client's problem. And that's why, the more I think about, we've been talking about digital twin quite a bit. When I see like NVIDIA and all these other companies starting to hijack the term digital twin and start layering on metaphysical, quite honestly, silliness on top of it, I think it completely distracts and detracts from the problem to be solved, which is how do we connect to things better? And how do we connect to things that we weren't able to connect to before? And how do we gather data, or at least source data, from these things that we want to measure, that we want to eventually be able to manage? And then maybe on the other end of the loop, control stuff, right? So I think that's where the problem lies. And I think, this whole idea of, well, if we can just kind of stick to what IoT is trying to solve, have if you want to layer on RPA and all this other junk on top of it, just say IoT plus RPA. I mean, RPA is its own thing. AI analytics, it's its own thing. Why confuse what you're trying to fundamentally do with the Internet of Things with all this other junk? And eventually it's going to be quantum and all this other bullshit that they're going to layer on top of this thing.
Right.
And
it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
you're right.
Leonard, if confusion gets your foot in the door, confusion all of a sudden becomes strategy. Let me just confuse.
That's a good one.
No, I'm only being half sarcastic here, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm confused, you're confused, but I got the pilot going. Let's go to
confused.
not you, Leonard. Well, let's go on this journey towards pilot purgatory, and do it. And I think I like your thing of IoT plus RPA, because again, that's for the honest crowd. Hey, there is an RPA component to this. There is some sort of this type of integration to this, and we'll do both. But I think where we get wrapped around the axle is that if I say IoT plus RPA, on the back of someone's mind, now they're going to get rid of that RPA investment they made because it's part of the IoT thingy. Therefore, less expensive because I got the bundle, right? So that's anyway. That's
no, you're right.
Those are my thoughts from the cemetery,
like
guys.
Well, when it comes, dude, it looks beautiful there. I hope that's not your last day on Earth, right there. But at least it'll be an easier, shorter journey though. Right.
I'm here.
You're already there. Just kind of lay back, gosh, I always, it's funny when you talk about confusion. A friend of mine, at times when I've been a consultant and they talk about making money in consulting, he had the funniest quote. He said, "Where there's mystery, there's margin." And he was so right. As soon as everybody knows what the thing really is, all the margin goes away. But when it's mysterious, like IoT or whatever, or the internet, we got to be on that. We got to have that.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about being really pragmatic and separating IoT from the other things, analytics, our good friend Rick Bellata always got mad at me for doing this, but I've always tried to describe IoT a system like Twitter. I go, it's just Twitter for machines. Yeah. And, I found that was always the easiest way to describe to a human being what it is. I was like, think about when you join Twitter, you've got the Twitter app and you sign up and you are a tweeter. You tweet things, which is like what a machine does. You also follow other tweeters. Well, that's like publish and subscribe.
Yeah.
And so the machines are tweeting and people and or analytics are following those tweeters. And so they say, yes, I want to hear those tweets. And then if I want to hear a group of tweets, there's the idea of grouping some of those things, which is also like following trends or hashtags and things like that. And then I said, hey, when a tweeter and a follower both decide to follow each other, then we can do command and control. And I can have a private message, DM go to you directly. I'm not saying it really well right now, but I remember writing an article about it, and Bellata hated me for it. He's like, stop doing that. People are going to think it's easy, like Twitter. But it's Twitter. It's just Twitter for machines. It's just an API.
Yeah. No, so audience, right? Yeah, of course, Rick is going to, blow a gasket, over that comment. But I think it helps those folks that get wrapped in mystery. It's tweet, pub, sub, follow, slide into my DMs. But where I would agree with Rick is that on that bit of being able to subscribe to the tweets that you want, right, from the tweeters that you want to follow. Yeah, man, the integration is a pain in the ass to do that in the real world.
Yes.
But you have companies that are solving that today. This, creating almost an abstraction layer. This thing is easier than ever before. And there's a couple of companies out there that are, I'll save the plug, but this whole unified namespace is the industrial equivalent of the Twitter analogy that you finally delivered, Mr. Tiffany. It's out there. So I'm in the middle, and I will not let you and Rick fight. Besides, he's probably bombing down a mountain on his mountain bike right now. He
probably is. And you know what? We all take baby steps. If you'll remember the early days of Twitter, how many times would you be on when it was just the web page, and all of a sudden you'd see the fail whale page because the system couldn't handle all of that stuff. But then eventually, and since I'm a developer architect guy, I watch all these YouTube videos that companies like Twitter and Facebook and others, their architects will make videos saying, here's how we were able to scale this globally. And I love watching that stuff because all that stuff can be applied to the businesses that we are in. Because trust me, those people are building things that are 1 trillion times more scalable than any industrial IoT thing ever conceived. Facebook is a giant portion of the entire global population, and their system just works. And so they obviously know what the hell they're doing, right? And so we can all learn from those architectural principles. And so, I just kind of, you study, how does Twitter work? Twitter's much simpler than Facebook. And yet, the notion of fan out queries and all this kind of stuff and all the technologies they use to support it. So that, because I haven't seen a fail whale in years on Twitter. It just works.
Well, I wish you had taken, a really good picture of that fail whale, because it could have been an NFT now, and we could have been sitting in your yacht on the Puget Sound.
Oh my God!
Doing this right now. Instead, I'm at a cemetery.
Instead, you're at a cemetery,
contemplating a future investment in property.
Well, maybe you can get a good deal on property there. I notice it's hard to buy a house these days. Everything's getting really expensive.
Yeah.
Well, here we don't need
build
lumber.
A house on the cemetery.
Yeah, I don't need the lumber. I just need a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Buy yourself a nice coffin.
Happy Gilmore was like, go to your home.
Don't you like your home?
Oh my gosh. So do we blame analysts and marketing departments for this IoT mania?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think no, there's more to. I think there's more to blame than that. But it is sort of what it is. I mean, that's the hype cycle, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to ask who do you attribute for the hype, it's academia, it's marketing groups. Well, I mean, analysts to a certain degree, some are better than others in kind of reining in the hype and setting. I mean, it should be part of their job, is to set the right expectations around technology. I mean, otherwise, what's your value as an analyst? And then the media. So I think that's really what it boils down to.
I remember big companies, like the biggest, tech companies in the world, hardware, software, and otherwise. If I go back 10 years ago, it was like, okay, we need something new to sell. We've done this smartphone revolution. Not all of us got to participate. Not everybody made money on that, and we're saturated in lots of spaces, and we need something new to sell. And IoT came along at the right time, and analysts wrote about it, and then marketing departments of non-analyst type firms were writing their kind of forecasts, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon because we need something new and novel to sell.
Because we got
it. We need new revenue.
Friggin' number.
Yeah, exactly.
To justify to keep that VC pipeline going. Do you remember companies? I remember people 10 years ago or whatever, not even that long ago, just saying we're on a mission to connect everything. Yeah.
And anything that can be connected should be connected. Why? Who made that shit up? What?
Consider how much it would cost and what kind of benefit you would get out of connecting everything.
Yeah, we're gonna
I have a square inch of my wall that needs connecting, dude.
But in trying to to think of on who to place blame, it's almost a collective blame. Like I saw it as marketing getting ahead of the engineering, right? Like, there's possible, then there's the art of the possible, and then wow, you really took it far this time. Like, holy cow!
Wow, yeah.
I mean, that's out there, but I think it was a collective decision, and once these things, once the hype takes off, I mean, it's the telephone game. You've got people repeating things that they don't really understand, but it sounds cool. Like, let's connect everything. When someone should go like, no, like, why would you do that? Like, what's the point? So it's a collective. It's a collective blame. But let's remember. And I don't know what the numbers are today, but early on, the biggest IoT revenue came from consultancy. That's what it was. We've all shared examples at some point in time, but that's where the money was. Let me throw 4 bodies at this thing because I'm billing right now.
Yeah.
There's now we're better, and by we, like for telcos, like we're getting better at when we say IoT revenue at breaking it down. Did it come from machine to machine connectivity? Check. Was it consultancy? Check. Was it this business, this business. But back in the day, it was just put it all in there, and then we got $1 trillion estimates to go chase after, and we were like, man, that's a lot of man hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's money.
Yeah,
money, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. So many people are to blame. If it gets kicked off by analyst reports, and then marketers chime in, and then people who want to take advantage of that, consultants. Oh, because you're right. Overnight, all the big consultancies, SIs, they all created IoT practices within their firms to go after that stuff. And you know what? I don't blame all these people. This gold rush is happening. Let's go get the gold. And the customers, they're like reading it and they're like, oh, okay, I guess we better do this, because an unnamed company started talking about the Internet of everything. And we're going to just connect all this stuff, and it's going to be like magic. Money's just going to be flowing.
But two things. One, the companies that were doing these complex solutions that required, connecting things and systems and people and doing awesome things with data, but they were not calling it IoT. It took them a while, because they're like, dude, we've been doing this for 30 years. Like, what is this shit? No, we're not doing a campaign. No, I'm not building. Like, we've been doing this, right? Yep. And they had market evidence. Their customers were like, I don't care what you guys call it, keep delivering value. Yeah. So it took those shops a while to say, okay, we have been doing it. We do have expertise, but we should spruce up the marketing a bit. Yeah. And those guys did get there. And then you had the disruptors, and they act the same way. It was, they find gaps in, you grab a big company that, or you grab 3 companies that have like 73% of the process control and automation market in the world. And it only takes one shop with a bunch of scrappy, gals and guys saying, oh man, they're missing on this thing. Yeah. And then they're able to deliver it. And then the other ones. So anyway, so I think there is that positive side of hype that educated customers have forced the market to come and finally deliver value. Yeah. Because
I hear that a lot. And I try to give it a little bit of credence that hype is good. Yeah, sure, it to a certain degree. But I think it's a matter of degree. And nowadays, with all this meme crap that's happening, hype can scale out and just get totally out of control. I mean, look at what they're doing with GameStop. GameStop has no fundamentals. Certainly not to justify its valuation, but look what kind of, I mean, it is damage. You can't trust the markets anymore. You can't.
What's wrong with GameStop, man?
But what you're talking about, David, is people actually coming up with solutions to a problem, and that's different. There's no hype in that. They recognize a real fundamental value that can be delivered by creating this little widget or creating some middleware or a hub to stitch things together to intermediate or disintermediate stuff. These are all significant value creation opportunities. But the thing is the problem is these types of things are value propositions and solutions that are created or are generated organically, right? All the other stuff is just bullshit. The stuff that a lot of VCs are investing in, they're probably going nuts over digital twin after when Rob went to VCs and said, well, it's a digital twin. They went, what's a digital twin? 2 years later, now it's the buzzword, and they're dumping tons of money into bullshit companies that aren't going to go anywhere because of the hype. They're not solving a real problem. What they're doing is they're attaching to a hypothetical that is not going to play out. It's not going to play out. Especially all this metaphysical weird bullshit about, trying to link a digital twin to solve a, edge IoT problem with, some data structure that's going to support AI ontologies. It's like, look, that's so far removed from the problem that needs to be solved for digital twins,
But it worked in the lab. It worked in my simulation.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote a paper on it, and a lot of people liked it.
There you go. Do I have to take a shot because you said AI ontology?
Yeah,
that's some big words there, dude.
I know. I know. I learned that.
Wow.
That was my new SAT word for 2020. Actually, it's 2019.
You sound really smart.
I know
with that word. That was
good. Did 2020 ever happen?
I don't think so.
I don't. Some people.
And you know what? Though, I guess
it was a leap year.
I guess every mega trend, whatever the hype is, and everybody thinks it's going to make money, and there's no guarantee. Even one that was so powerful, like the smartphone deal, it's like we've got these guys, and then did anybody else make any money? All these other smartphone manufacturers,
a lot of revenue, not a lot of profit. Maybe there's just one company that made a crap ton.
I just think
90% of the revenue share, profit share.
I jumped on that bandwagon. I was part of that craze too, and we poured billions into Windows Mobile and Windows Phone, and in the end, it was just kind of like the beginning of the Xbox journey. Xbox was lose money, and 360 comes out, and we finally dig our way out of a hole, right? And then it gets popular. Even in the best of markets where it was, the smartphone wireless connectivity app thing, there was no bullshit about that. That was real, and people wanted it bad. But even that didn't guarantee profitability, though. If you weren't Apple or Samsung, forget it. I don't know. You tell me, you've got the analysts. I don't know. Are any of the other handset manufacturers making big profits at all?
I don't you have Samsung, they're making some.
Yeah. But you got,
even like Huawei when they were, it ended up being one of the more profitable businesses that they had, but they weren't killing it. When you look at profit share, still Apple with its minority, what you would consider minority shipment share, they're the only ones killing it, really.
But outsized revenue.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a straight up commodity market now.
Yeah.
And people will say that Apple's overpriced. It's like, no, maybe their stuff is just friggin' good, despite
maybe it just works.
It just works, and it has a lot of other value that people are willing to pay a huge premium over. But then that's the dilemma for this whole IoT conversation or any other hype technology thing, is there's always this fat end of the curve, and the vast majority, and probably 95% of the participants in any early market, they're on the long tail, and that it sucks to be on the long tail. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that's the challenge. But the thing is that you still have to figure out how to position yourself to really survive this trough of disillusionment that's happening around IoT right now. Now it's weird. Rob, you and I, when we were in Barcelona like 4 years ago, we were talking about how this stuff doesn't feel kosher. Now everyone's talking about how the IoT is now a bit of a disappointment, if not a tremendous disappointment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how do you get out of that? So that's the other now challenge, go forward challenge that the IoT industry, and yes, these are air quotes, needs to figure out. And I think a lot of it really boils down to definitionally what the hell is IoT, or what is it that we're talking about, and what is is there a better way of thinking about this in that frames our business and what we're trying to do in a way that can actually sell through. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. And so the better way to talk about it, I guess, from now on is Twitter for machines.
So are you saying Rick was wrong this whole time?
Rick,
it's not just Twitter. You're just saying that it's like it, but then it doesn't mean that that's the only social media platform. You still
but it's just I'm always a fan of breaking things to simplest terms and describing it in a way people can understand and that they can relate to. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Rick says, "Oh, you're oversimplifying it. People are gonna get in trouble or whatever." Like, whatever. It's fine. But back to our point, a lot of people thought IoT encompassed a whole lot of other stuff. They think it encompassed analytics and digital twins and a zillion other things. It just depended on who you talk to.
Yeah. My comment back to you, Leonard, is that the opportunity lies in toning down the hype and focusing on what is the value, what is the business value at hand, like starting with that, and then having the conversation of how IoT gets you to this value, and just do it in a more honest way. You want analytics? That's great. Do you have data capture? You don't. IoT can help you. Just super simple. Now, I didn't say IoT is analytics, but it's a path too. No different than asking all the way back. Oh, you want AI? Great. Are your machine learning models learning today? Oh, you don't have machine learning. Okay, great. Let's go back. Are you, what's the data that you're going to, oh, you don't have the data either. Okay, let's go back. And then it's like, let me tell you how the IoT helps you here so that you get to this, what is it? Quantum. I forgot. I didn't say quantum, right? I got to go all the way out there to the side of the cemetery where I see a hill, and then it just dips.
Yeah. Well,
that's what it is.
And think about what you just outlined. If you just make IoT simple, then you don't have to worry about having to deliver so much. Just figure out, okay, this is the problem that we're going to solve right here. And then the other stuff, well, we're not really all that good at it, so we need to partner. And here, going forward, we want to create more, revenue opportunities for ourselves as we engage each one of our clients. So we're going to expand in these areas. As IoT continues to expand, all of a sudden, everyone feels pressure to do everything. Digital twin, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, well, does your digital IoT platform do digital twins? It's like, does it have to?
Does it have to? No. It doesn't have to.
This is what we're trying to.
But back to David's comments, I'm a big fan of using quantum terminology in IoT and digital twins. I do like to say that the physical thing is entangled with the digital twin of the physical thing. And so I love using the term entanglement. And the spooky stuff is happening when the machine changes, the digital thing instantaneously changes.
Yes.
On how fast
that is the digital twin. It's the mirror. It's just
the mirror. And they're
a clone. Oh, by the way, I'm writing a thought leadership piece on the idea of I know it sounds really bad that I'm introducing another term, but the idea of a digital clone where you can lump in everything that everyone's trying to do with the digital twin related to modeling and all this stuff, which has nothing to do with the mirror, right? It's all about, let me get a copy of Rob and then let me start screwing around with him in these virtual environments or simulations that have existed forever, and allow digital twin really to be a topic about the mirror and the entanglement, because that in and of itself is a huge thing to solve. It's think about all the latency stuff, the connectivity, the reliability, the fidelity of that you want to capture through sensors, all that stuff. If you just look at creating that mirror, it's a huge problem to solve. And it has nothing to do with like simulation and all this other crap happening.
Yeah.
That's already been happening, and it's a different thread. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, so as I just ran out of coffee, and the
we gotta get out of here,
just waved at me. But we should clarify.
What?
Now,
a corpse winked at you?
No, like a living employee and caretaker of these beautiful grounds just waved at me.
Oh,
but look, you guys, since we have an incredible following, with the Hollywood elite, we should clarify that we're using the word entanglement, as in tying the digital and the physical, not entanglement like that Will Smith, Jada Pinkett thing. Just wanted to clarify that.
Just to clarify.
Nothing against you, Will. We love you, bud. Different entanglement here.
Oh, man, we're in trouble because we know that Will and Jada, they watch this show.
They hit like and they share.
Yeah. So with that, who wants to take us out? Hey, why don't you do that from Purgatory?
Yeah.
Beautiful Purgatory.
Folks, this marks the end of another episode. It's the first one that we do from a cemetery, which makes us think about all the IoT, POC, purgatory hell that we've talked about through many, many episodes. But thank you for listening. Do not forget to like us, share, and check us out on YouTube at iotcoffeetalk.com. Please comment, ask us any questions, engage, and we will see you here next week. Click and share.
Yay. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Good seeing you guys.
Have a
Bye,
great
guys.
week.
Stay alive.
All right.
Life is good.
Stay alive.